He was the driver, the rule breaker, the face of a franchise built on discipline, precision, and silence. And then, without warning, Jason Statham was gone. No explosion, no scandal, no dramatic meltdown splashed across tabloids. Just a carefully worded press release, wrapped in polite Hollywood language, scheduling conflicts, creative differences, a mutual decision. But none of that was true. Hollywood rarely tells the truth when money is involved. And the real reason Jason Statham walked away from the transporter wasn't ego or attitude or some behind-the-scenes feud. It was something colder, something calculated. Something most studios hope actors never recognize until it's too late. Because this wasn't a story about quitting a role. It was about refusing a trap. And once you see what was actually happening behind closed doors, the entire franchise collapse suddenly makes sense. When the transporter hit theaters, it didn't feel like just another action movie. It felt different. No endless dialogue, no cartoonish villains, no overproduced chaos, just speed, precision. And a lead character who followed rules until the moment he didn't. Frank Martin wasn't loud. He wasn't emotional. He didn't explain himself. And that restraint became the secret weapon. Jason Statham didn't just play Frank Martin. He was Frank Martin, a man of control, discipline, and efficiency. Every movement felt intentional. Every fight felt real. The action wasn't flashy. It was practical, brutal, clean. Audiences responded instantly. What the studio initially saw as a modest action project turned into a global hit. The transporter wasn't just successful, it became a blueprint, a new type of action hero for a new era. And at the center of it all was Jason Statham, not a traditional Hollywood star, not a manufactured celebrity, but a performer who made silence compelling and restraint powerful. By the time Transporter 2 wrapped, the franchise had momentum, but something else had changed too. Jason Statham had changed. After Transporter 2, Jason Statham was no longer the scrappy British newcomer studios could control. He was bankable. International audiences recognized him. Studios trusted him. Action fans followed him. And with that rise came leverage. Behind the scenes, Statham reportedly began pushing for evolution. Smarter stunts, sharper choreography, better writing, less repetition. He didn't want Frank Martin to become a parody of himself. But the producers saw things differently. To them, the formula worked. Same tone, same structure, same beats. They believed the brand was the star. Statham believed the performance was. That difference in philosophy didn't explode overnight. It simmered. Quietly, professionally. But tension was forming beneath the surface. Because while the studio wanted consistency, Statham wanted growth. And that disagreement would soon collide with something far more serious than creative direction. When discussions began about continuing the franchise, expectations were high. But what came next shocked Statham's camp. According to multiple reports and later comments attributed to Statham himself, the producers proposed a 3-film deal. Not one sequel, not 2, 3, Transporter 4, Transporter 5, Transporter 6, and here's the part that changed everything. There were no scripts, no outlines, no completed stories, no clear direction. Just a demand for blind commitment. In Hollywood, that kind of deal is rare and risky. Signing years of your career to projects that don't even exist on paper is a gamble, especially for an actor whose value is climbing fast. But it didn't stop there. The financial terms were worse. Reports suggest the offer included a significant pay cut, not an increase, a number that reportedly didn't come close to what Statham could earn elsewhere at the time. To Statham, the message was clear. The studio didn't see him as a partner. They saw him as replaceable, and that realization flipped the negotiation completely. The final meeting wasn't dramatic. No shouting, no slammed doors, no threats. It was quiet, too quiet. The producers laid out their terms. Sign the 3-film contract. Accept the reduced pay. Commit without scripts or walk away. No room for revisions. No compromise. No flexibility. From their perspective, this was standard business. The franchise mattered more than the actor, but from Statham's perspective, it was about respect. He wasn't willing to gamble 3 years of his career on unwritten films. He wasn't willing to take a financial hit while carrying the brand. And he wasn't willing to be treated like a disposable part in a machine he helped build. So he did the unthinkable. He stood up, thanked the room, and walked away. No spectacle, no public drama, just a door closing quietly on a franchise that didn't realize it had just lost its core. Once Statham left, reality hit fast. The studio had plans, financiers were lined up, schedules were locked, and now the face of the franchise was gone. Phones started ringing, meetings stacked up, emails turned frantic. They needed a replacement fast, not just an actor but a message. The strategy became clear: recast immediately, move forward without him, prove that no one actor was bigger than the system. Ed Skrein's name surfaced quickly: young, Talented, cheaper. He fit the new direction perfectly. More control, less cost. The decision wasn't really about the future of the franchise. It was about proving a point. When the press releases went out, they were flawless. Scheduling conflicts, creative differences, a fresh direction, perfect Hollywood language, smooth, harmless, unquestioned. But behind the scenes, the tone was very different. Reports suggest Statham's camp viewed the recast as a deliberate message, an attempt to erase his contribution and assert control. On the studio side, some reportedly saw Statham's departure as disloyal, ungrateful, a betrayal. Two sides, no communication, only silence. And in Hollywood, silence is rarely peaceful. It usually means war. While the Transporter reboot struggled to find its footing, Jason Statham was already several steps ahead. He didn't respond publicly. He didn't criticize the studio. He simply kept working. And the choices he made next quietly confirmed that walking away had been the right decision. Statham began aligning himself with franchises that understood his value. He joined the Expendables, positioning himself alongside established action legends while still standing out as a modern force. Soon after, he entered the Fast and Furious universe, where his presence injected new energy into a series that was already massive. His role expanded quickly, proving he wasn't just a supporting addition, but a key draw. Then came Hobbs and Shaw, a film that revolved almost entirely around his chemistry and screen presence. By that point, his global appeal was undeniable. His name alone could sell tickets. Meanwhile, the Transporter brand faded further into the background. Reboots, spin-offs, and television adaptations failed to recapture what once made the franchise special. Without Statham, the identity was gone. The contrast became impossible to ignore. As one career surged forward, the other slowly disappeared. For years, the dominant narrative around Jason Statham's departure from the Transporter was simple and convenient. Ego. The idea that he believed he was bigger than the franchise, that success went to his head, and that he walked away because he wanted more attention or control. It's a story Hollywood likes to tell, because it shifts responsibility away from the system. But that version doesn't hold up. Statham didn't demand outrageous creative power. He didn't issue public ultimatums. He didn't attack the studio after leaving. What he did was far less dramatic and far more dangerous to the status quo. He said no. No to signing 3 films without scripts. No to committing years of his career without knowing the direction. And no to accepting a reduced salary while carrying the weight of the franchise. That isn't ego, it's awareness. He understood his leverage and refused to pretend he didn't. In an industry built on long-term control and short-term silence, that kind of decision gets reframed as arrogance. But in reality, it was professionalism. A calculated move to protect his value, his time, and his future, even if it meant walking away from something iconic. Jason Statham didn't blow up the Transporter, he exposed it. The popular story says he walked away from a guaranteed franchise, but the truth is far more unsettling for Hollywood. He saw the trap before it closed. A long-term deal with no scripts, a pay cut dressed up as opportunity, a system betting he'd stay quiet and sign anyway. He didn't, and that single decision rewrote everything. The franchise that believed it could replace him collapsed the moment audiences realized what had been taken away. Meanwhile, Statham didn't just survive, he leveled up. He became a pillar of the modern action era, a face trusted to carry billion-dollar properties, while the franchise he left slowly faded into irrelevance. That's the part Hollywood doesn't like to talk about. This wasn't rebellion. It was leverage, a reminder that sometimes the most powerful move isn't demanding more, it's walking away entirely. So the next time you hear that an actor quit or got difficult, ask yourself what really happened behind the scenes. Because in this case, Jason Statham didn't abandon the Transporter. He escaped it. And if you want more stories Hollywood would rather keep buried, the deals, the power plays, and the careers that changed overnight, subscribe to StarStates.